This podcast is brought to you by ITV Studios. From edge-of-your-seat drama to entertainment with serious buzz, we've got it all and then some. Want in? Head to itvstudios.com or grab the ITV Studios Watch Anywhere app to stream full episodes anytime, even offline. Big drama, bold formats, real stories, all under one roof from ITV Studios.
Step into the world of digital-first production at NextWave, the brand new summit launching in Halle, Germany, this October. Documentary Campus presents NextWave, the digital-first production summit at Industry Training Day. Curated by me, Justin Crosby, NextWave brings together innovators and decision-makers driving today's digital-first production economy. Sessions will explore launching successful YouTube channels, moving from TV to digital production, monetizing catalog content, transforming broadcast content for streaming platforms, building brand partnerships, and navigating the new world of commissioning. NextWave is part of the Documentary Campus Industry Training Days, alongside the renowned Master School pitching event, creating a powerful space where filmmakers and executives connect, exchange ideas, and unlock market-ready opportunities. Join us in Halle, Germany on October the 31st and November the 1st. Register now at documentary-campus.com. That's documentary-campus.com. Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to this week's TellyCast. This week we're diving into one of the most important industry shifts happening right now, the rise of YouTube as the dominant TV platform. My guest is Ben Woods, Creator Economy Analyst at MIDiA Research, who've just published a major new report called The New Hollywood: Tactics for YouTube's TV Takeover. We'll be talking about why YouTube now leads TV watch time in the US, how younger audiences are using their living room TVs to watch social video instead of broadcast channels, and what all this means for broadcasters, producers, and advertisers. From the rise of short clips and children's content to the power of long tail with creators, Ben will explain why traditional media needs to stay relevant in the new production economy. Ben, welcome to TellyCast. How are you doing?
I'm great, Justin. Thanks for the invite.
Not at all.
To be here.
Yeah, well, you're fresh back from IBC, I believe.
Yeah, not feeling too fresh, but definitely, definitely back from IBC. Yeah, so back, sort of having a bit of a chin wag about the creator economy. Big focus this year at IBC.
Yep.
Really interesting, actually, to see that shift. Obviously, it's a central point for traditional entertainment and broadcasting. So to see the creator economy really embraced this year was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I bet. Well, we're going to get into that with your new report, which is really interesting stuff. So YouTube is calling itself the new TV, isn't it? They're touting themselves and their creators the new Hollywood. What's that mean in practice?
Sure. Well, I think when we look at YouTube now, and it's really become this central point for all types of content for all people. You know, the days of it just being a place where we found very small content creators and cat videos are very, very much behind us. You know, go onto YouTube now, you can find TV shows, movies, live sport with NFL was a big moment in recent weeks. And, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but children's entertainment and beyond. All of that thrown together with, how to fix your car videos and, niche sports or niche entertainment interests. There is kind of something for everyone. And of course, in the past, that was the promise of TV, but it couldn't cater to quite the same niche level that YouTube does. And, why is it calling itself the new TV? Well, it's taking over the TV set and becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, I've seen so much going backwards and forwards on LinkedIn recently about, is YouTube TV?
Yeah.
Is YouTube TV?
Yes, I mean, I see it from a different lens to perhaps others in this debate. I think it's interesting because it depends how you're coming at the debate as to whether you believe it's TV or not. I come at it from the focus of the attention economy. Where are consumers spending their attention? And we're all fighting as entertainment providers to capture that attention. And if that if that attention on the TV is being taken up by YouTube, then to me, that is TV viewing. Now, I think a lot of the other parts of the debate are around, well, when it comes to advertising, and clearly, YouTube are going after TV advertising with this kind of TV style push. I think there's some concern around that if YouTube presents itself as TV, advertisers see it as TV, then how do broadcasters and traditional TV companies continue to get that advertising spend that they need to make great content?
Yeah, well, Channel 4 are obviously a great example of that. They're selling their own advertising on YouTube, as are Zoo 55 for ITV Studios. But we'll get a bit more into that in a little while. We've seen that YouTube has overtaken Netflix in the US in terms of streaming on TV sets. Yeah. How significant a moment do you think that is?
I think it's a really big moment, and I see it as a fundamental shift that I don't think is going away. I don't think this is a sort of flash in the pan, as it were. And I think when we just dissect why this is happening, I think it's a big vote of confidence for the YouTube style of engagement over the streaming style of engagement. So what do I mean by that? Well, YouTube enables a lot of different ways to engage with content. You've obviously got the algorithm, which is serving you things based on your niche interests. That's actually a great form of lean back consumption because it's giving you what you want, and then you don't have to make your mind up. You just start watching.
The doom scroll.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, it's also giving us this lean through engagement, as we call it. Well, what does that mean? Well, we're able, if we want to get into the comments, engage with a community around content. We're able to find a community around content. And obviously that's very different to the type of experience that you have when you go onto Netflix or another streaming service, where very much it's around finding the right show and consuming that show, and really that being the definitive full stop on that experience.
Yeah. Well, it's also about community around content, and actually many, super smart creators and digital first studios are iterating their content as they go based upon what the community wants. They might say they want to hear more of a particular character or of a particular topic, and that's brilliant. It's real-time feedback from the audience.
Well, 100%. And I think that's actually really key to the sort of success, I think, of social first studios or those that do it really well. Because that's directly from the creator mindset. That's what these creators doing. I mean, if you look at live streamers, or you look at very successful YouTubers, they're publishing, and then they're deep in those analytics. They're looking at, where are the peak engagement times? Where did it drop off here? Why did I lose some engagement here? Or where did things really pick up? These guys aren't just creating content. They are, the audience analysts and specialists for their own areas. And that's what makes them so successful. And so I think that is a bit of a shift in mindset, because actually, I suppose in the past, it was a lot of, we come up with a creative idea, we put it out there, it's quite a long cycle production-wise, then we get the audience feedback from the critics or what have you. How did it go down? Oh, good, okay, a bit more of that then thanks, or not so good, what do we need to do? Well, if you're a creator, this content's going out, and then the next day you're looking at the analytics, and you might change your tack in 2 days' time for the next piece of content that you're putting out. So that level of flexibility and responsiveness is a lot quicker.
Yeah. And it's actually similar in many ways to how Netflix operates as well. Obviously, we know that the millions and millions that have been put into developing Netflix as a super smart, algorithmic-based platform.
Yes.
And it's kind of just what they do, right? But it's putting that sort of power in the hand of a producer or a creator to iterate their content in no time at all, in real time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. And it's actually really interesting, because I think we're actually starting to see even the likes of Netflix embracing some of the behaviors around the creator economy as well. You'll see that there was a recent announcement about Netflix releasing this editing tool, or at least changing the feature somewhat to make it more responsive. So actually what consumers can now do, they can go and watch their favorite shows. They can clip it up, drop it onto social for their community, and start creating a bit of buzz around it. that to me shows just how powerful the creator economy is becoming.
Absolutely. That's super interesting. Because I suppose that's one of the reasons why Quibi was a disaster, is that it wasn't socially shareable. You know, they proved that there was a demand for vertical drama, vertical content back then, but the fact that you couldn't share it, it was inside a walled garden.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, obviously we can take our chat in lots of different directions, but, one of the things that I think is so important is that engaging with audiences now is collaborative. It's not just we give you the content and enjoy it and we'll keep you at arm's length. Thank you very much.
One-way broadcast.
Yeah, right. And now it's about, we talked about the data side. What do we learn from the audience? What are they telling us? They're our closest fans. They're our biggest champions, actually.
Yeah.
They're the ones that give us visibility, because if they're going away and creating content about us, if they're sharing it with their friends, or if they're commenting and what have you, that gives us all visibility. So yeah, they're some of my peers in the industry have talked about them being a part of the infrastructure now of the success of content, and I would agree with that.
Yeah. Are we seeing the death of broadcast TV then? It seemingly is heading only one way, but has the death knell been rung for it?
No, I mean, do you know what? I'm very much obviously excited and champion the creator economy, but I'm also a great champion of the broadcast industry, especially in this country. We're going through a period of transition. We've been going through that period of transition for a while. It's called the shift to streaming, and we can watch things live through streaming now. We can catch up through streaming now. Yes, the linear channels, albeit they're cash generative and very lucrative still for the broadcast industry, they will lose their relevance in time, and part of that is to do with this, just the shift in the way that young consumers consuming content, right? But younger consumers who are consuming social content, they're also consuming a lot of streaming content on the likes of SVOD, AVOD, BVOD platforms, and the likes of broadcasters. So this isn't something to be gloomy about. This is another opportunity to engage, I think, a slightly different type of audience, and it's really important to engage that type of audience. But it's also important to realize that, there still remains a really important business over here, in the streaming world, which these guys are going to dominate and occupy.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about shift. Let's look at some of the data from your report. So the data shows that 16 to 34-year-olds now rank social video as their second biggest use of the TV set behind streaming, while live broadcast has dropped into third. How fast is this shift happening? Want to get ahead in digital-first content? The Drop is the go-to newsletter for industry professionals, delivering insider news, trends, and insights straight to your inbox. Navigate the fast-changing landscape of digital-first production, distribution, and monetization. Sign up now for free at dropmedia.co.uk and stay informed with The Drop.
Well, it's here and now, basically. The interesting thing about that data is actually when you look at it from an average consumer point of view, broadcast is further up. It's further up the tree, and
with
social,
older consumers, presumably,
because older consumers are pulling that up there, because they're still professional, preferential way, should I say, of consuming content. But when you look at younger consumers, that isn't the case, and you have to make the assumption that a lot of those behaviors which are being ingrained in them now will carry through to when they become older, basically. And it's 16 to 34-year-olds. That's already a significant portion of that younger audience. So it's here and now. It's happening now. So it's really important to get your strategies in order to make sure you're catering to both that social and streaming side of the market if you want to reach these people.
Yeah. Well, let's I'm going to pull out another stat here. And this is in the UK specifically. 35% of 16 to 19-year-olds now use the TV set primarily for social platforms, compared with 25% watching live broadcast. So what's this telling us about that group, that 16 to 19-year-old demographic.
And the interesting thing about this report was that one of the things we were able to do was we were actually able to take and create a segment. So we were able to create a segment of watchers of social platforms on TV. Now, what that meant we could do was look at all the different sort of behaviors that they engage with. And I think, with that younger demographic, it just shows that that's key to them in terms of how they reach content now. And then when we looked at that segment, we realized what's really driving that is YouTube. It is that YouTube phenomenon. We know obviously that, while TikTok has a smart TV app, it's not quite at the same level as YouTube. And I think YouTube has really captured engagement in a number of different ways.
Is Twitch anywhere on the scale there?
Twitch, actually, no. It's Twitch remains quite a niche level of kind of penetration wise.
It's mainly kind of PC based around gaming, and people are obviously there's lots of other genres that people are consuming content, but gaming remains the dominant.
Gaming remains the dominant way of consuming content on there for sure. You do have things like kind of IRL streams, and music is actually becoming really big on Twitch now too. In terms of that smart TV or TV cut through, it's YouTube.
It's YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some content now. Children's content like Peppa Pig is dominating the YouTube TV charts. What lessons can broadcasters and producers draw from that then?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's quite remarkable, and it just shows. I think children's content was one of the really early adopters of taking this kind of strategy forward, and it says a lot about the audience that are watching on YouTube. That we've got a lot of very young audiences who are growing up now with this type of content, and not just this type of content, but the way in which the platform operates. Which there's plenty of unique features to YouTube that perhaps aren't the same as a Netflix. But if I take something quite similar, and I'm sure you've talked about it on this podcast before, but something like Bluey, if you look at what BBC Studios have done with the likes of Bluey, they've really leaned into that sort of creator approach. So this isn't about just putting up an episode of Bluey or Peppa Pig. This is about, okay, how do we then recut that into clippable moments that can target a specific demographic? One of the great examples I loved about the Bluey strategic approach was they took Bluey and they cut it up into chunks for TikTok, and then they suddenly realized when they looked at the data that actually there was an older sort of teenage demographic that were really engaging with that content. Something you just simply wouldn't have learned, I don't think, if you hadn't have taken that content onto social. And that is actually one of the big benefits of social, is actually you embrace it. You learn a lot more about who the audiences are on there for your type of content. And then you can pivot and lean into that if it tells you new things.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the strength of YouTube as well then. Now, we are obviously always talking about Mr. Beast and Sidemen and some of these, huge superstar creators and creator brands out there. But its real strength really lies in this long tail of creators. These hundreds of thousands, in fact, millions of creators who have got, they may not have the 20, 30 million subscribers, but they may have, 100, 200,000 really healthy, engaged communities. Can you expand on that a little bit in terms of why that is such a strength for YouTube?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, this is sort of one of these things which I've always really encouraged people to sort of take away and sort of maybe slightly change their mindset when they're thinking about YouTube, because, the Mr. Beasts of this world aren't always very reflective of a lot of what's going on YouTube. For me, I always think about YouTube, niche is king on YouTube. And those that manage to find a bespoke community by really honing in on a niche area, they get that kind of repeat engagement that a lot of broadcasters would love. And as you rightly said, in the long tail, there are hundreds of thousands, if not, millions of creators who are doing that. Yeah, they might not be making, vast sums of money, but they are making decent money, and they're getting audiences who love what they do. It reflects their values. It directly reflects their interests. So they've got that, real buy-in. So
it's also entertainment. And I think that people don't talk about YouTube as a educational service as well, right? Obviously, yeah, we can use YouTube to find out how you hammer in a nail into a particular type of, wall or whatever. But it's also about, people discover new creators, new content by searching. And that's also the power, obviously, of Google and the overall algorithm that we can search for content, or we can search for an answer. We get served up content, and then we discover a new creator, and then we find that creator is absolutely answering exactly what we want and telling us more.
100%. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? If you start to develop perhaps an inkling of an interest in a new hobby, and you take that interest to YouTube, that's, it's just going to reel you in, because you've got, the passion, the community, the creators that are really driving that. And you can feel part of that community pretty fast, I think. So I think that it's like an amplifier for interests and hobbies. It makes people feel a part of something, which I think is actually really powerful in this sort of fragmented world that we live in now.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your report, you argue that traditional media needs to think like creators, not like broadcasters. What does that mean in terms of production and the overall future for traditional media?
Sure. Well, I think, we touched on it a little bit, which is this idea of, you've got to start thinking about audiences as a collaborative partner in a bit more of a way like that, rather than just someone who you're serving content to. I think that's important to think about straight away. But also it's about finding a way to produce content that is fast and flexible too. It's not going to be easy, to create sort of social first content right from the outset. I actually think one of the interesting things about the Channel 4 approach, which was they took a lot of content that was already there on broadcast onto YouTube, and they built an audience, they built a following, and then they sort of split up clips, they repackaged things, they really sort of learnt their way in terms of how to really engage with that community, and then they started commissioning sort of social first pieces of content, because what is sort of key on YouTube is to find your formula. What is your formula? What is your sort of secret sauce, which people are going to come back and engage with you? And then you need to be fast and flexible. So, actually spending vast sums of money over long production cycles to create a piece of content for YouTube, that's not worth your time. You're not going to get the return you want on that. It's about, I think, producing quickly, probably failing quickly at the beginning, learning and adapting. And if you do that, and you find that sweet spot, then I think you're off and away in terms of getting that advertising money.
That's a really interesting point, that I think that traditional TV producers, and the not just producers, the industry as a whole, is almost allergic to failure. They're terrified of failure, whereas the creator mindset is about fail fast, right? And it's about learn, iterate. It's not a problem that a video has only, generated a couple of thousand views as opposed to the 50, 100, 200,000 or million that they were expecting. But the fact is that the data's there to tell them why they've failed, and they can go and immediately address that on their next video, and they can do that within 24, 48 hours or so.
Definitely. And I think, the really interesting thing when people go on this journey is that sometimes it's not just about the type of content, that the reason it didn't, really take off to begin with. It could just be it wasn't packaged in the right way, i.e. maybe you needed to break it up into some short clips. Maybe you actually, if you've got one social channel over here, maybe it wasn't right for that one. You needed to put it in this one over here. And actually, you can sometimes take a piece of content, publish it 2 or 3 times, and it may be the third time is where you get it right, maybe with the right thumbnail or the right title, right?
You're right, metadata.
Yeah. So actually, it's all about, not being afraid of failure is really important. And actually, the good thing, like I said, is actually, you can publish really engaging content on YouTube, and it doesn't have to cost the earth.
Yeah.
So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, to use a cliche.
Yeah. And there's so many AI tools there that can help you clip up content and speed up that what potentially feels like a quite a scary proposition to produce the amount of content. I mean, you talk to Lad Bible or you talk to many larger social publishers, and the number of pieces of content that they talk about they're publishing a year or a week, it's thousands. And it's like, well, that is, it seems, just a possible mountain to climb. But actually, they're using ChatGPT, they're using Opus Pro, they're using all these different tools, Autopod to help edit, all of these that can really speed up this process and automate a lot of it. And so, with those tools on board, then it doesn't seem quite so daunting.
Definitely. The industry is kind of working in your favor now if you really want to take this kind of approach. And, actually one of the things that really fascinates me about where, creation and these creator tools are going is this idea now that actually one-man band type creators can kind of come together now through some of these AI type collaborative tools and almost create their own kind of mini studio and can produce content. So yes, a lot of when we see innovation with AI allows one individual or two individuals to do more work, but if you're looking to produce content at speed and engage at speed, then that's going to be helpful for you in the long run, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I use it every single day for TellyCast. Absolutely. Coming back to Channel 4, you mentioned, Channel 4. They're a great example. And we actually had Ofcom on the show a few weeks ago, and they were talking about, traditional TV and broadcast TV is, facing an extinction moment. Yes. And lots of different broadcasters in the UK have perhaps been slower off the mark than Channel 4 of going into the social first space. And why do you think that is? Because, Channel 4 have proven through data that they've brought new audiences to their content as opposed to it being cannibalizing. Do you think that's why these other UK broadcasters haven't made this leap yet? This fear of cannibalization? Yeah,
definitely. That's I think the key worry around all of this and whether you should be so fast moving in this particular space. What's really interesting though is that there is definitely a type of consumer on social platforms who is happy on social platforms, thank you very much, and doesn't want to be migrated elsewhere. And I think that's really important because a lot of the broadcast and streaming approach to social so far has been kind of like a marketing tool. It's like, right, let's cast that line out into the pool of social by dropping an episode on there, get people interested, and hopefully you can sort of reel them back in to our streaming services over here. But what you find is that there is a type of person over here that doesn't want to bite on that line, right? Doesn't want to bite on that hook. They just want to consume content, and there's a lot of TV content on there. But that's actually quite a good thing because also what that means is that you can go over and serve that particular consumer with content, and it's not going to impact and cannibalize what you've got over here on your streaming services. It's additive, and I think that's something that Channel 4 talks about, is it being additive. The question, though, and I think this still remains the question, how do you efficiently and effectively bring people from over here to over here? And I think actually key to that will be fandom, building communities around your content, really nurturing communities around your specific IPs and content to the point where they are so engaged, they've got so much buy-in, they feel a part of this process that when you do drop content over here, they have to come over and consume it.
It's interesting because we've seen Amazon Prime with Mr. Beast, of course, and Netflix with a number of different creators, including Sidemen, have made... they're actively looking at the creator market to build new brands and everything, and obviously bring in younger audiences as well. Do you expect to see more of that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be plenty more of that. What we call sort of lane hopping, basically. There's going to be plenty more of that. Mainly because I do think sort of streaming services do see creators as the gateway to accessing younger audiences and communities, especially with some of those superstar creators who they just have such significant reach. But also on the creator side, some of these big creators are moving from just being creators in social to being these basically entertainment franchises now. If you look at the sort of Dude Perfect, they've got a Nerf range of toys. They've had a Nickelodeon show. They're doing, live events. And so, when they're building out these franchises, if the opportunity to access a different type of audience on streaming is also attractive to them, know. So I think there's going to be plenty more of this kind of lane hopping going around. And I think actually what we're going to see a lot more of as well is traditional TV type content, movie content, finding its way onto social too.
What are the key risks then, do you think, for broadcasters and producers that are not adapting to this shift?
I think the risk is you don't want to be invisible to a new generation of audiences. And there is so much content out there now. There's so many ways to be entertained out there now. And especially when, YouTube and the social platforms have this ability to cater to niche interests. If you're not there, you're not going to get cut through. I think the days of just, we'll release it and they will come. They're very much over. And I think actually it's a good thing because it's building communities, engaging with audiences around communities. Actually going to be a really interesting pivot, I think, going forward because it allows you to unlock different types of monetization. Merch, for example, becomes much more important. We talked about, just touched on live events with Dude Perfect, but live could become much more important going forward. And there's no end of really popular franchises that exist within the traditional TV space already. And actually, and one of the things I think is so important to remember here is that broadcasters are experts in entertaining and in fandom. It's just about how do you take that expertise and apply it to this new world. And there's absolutely no reason that they won't be successful in this new world.
Producers are master storytellers. That's what they do, right? Absolutely. And I think, the skills that they have versus the new skills that they need to learn, they can learn those very, very quickly, or they can bring in the right people, or they can work with the right consultants in the short term to really future-proof their businesses because they've got that inherent skill set of being able to tell an amazing story. It might not be your half an hour story or an hour long programming block story. It might be, it gives you the freedom to make that story as long or as short as you want, but it gives you the opportunity to tailor the length of and the format of that to the audience by listening to what they really want to consume.
100%. And also, it's always really important to remember that YouTube isn't a place just for younger audiences. YouTube is a place for audiences right across, the age brackets. And it's also a place where traditional TV talent can go and have a very successful time. You've only got to look at, Gary Lineker with, the Rest is Football, podcast. Traditional talent with great personality does really well, on social. So personality and storytelling in formats that are geared towards that world, it's a formula that succeeds.
It's a really exciting time actually, because just seeing some creators and creator channels like That's Football and The Overlap just acquiring international football rights for the Bundesliga, for example, and I think Goalhanger have acquired La Liga rights as well for Gary Lineker. Is going to be whether they're doing watch-alongs or whatever, all these different types of consuming content. Great for Bundesliga; it gives them new audiences, and great for these production companies because it gives them lots of amazing content and. We can see much more of that, I think, coming down the line, can't we? And
great for the funnel, for fans, right? One of the real challenges over the years has been we've got to make live sport pay, because of, how it trickles down into the competitions. As a result, that means it has to go behind a paywall a lot of the time, which means then an older person with a decent amount of cash flow and money is the main person that can pay to access that. So, when you've got this sort of democratization of content, this ability to, give some live rights or some access to live rights or clips to creators, you're creating an opportunity to bring younger fans into the funnel, keep that whole thing healthier.
Yeah, and it's all about future-proofing and longer term for your business.
For sure.
Brilliant, Ben. Well, now it's time for our story of the week, where our guests get to highlight the TV industry story or entertainment industry story of the past 7 days that's caught their eye. What's your story of the week?
So this really jumped out to me because I think it's going to be a really important moment coming down the line, and it's OpenAI and Critters. I don't know if you've seen this, but OpenAI has announced that they're actually working with a UK studio on this, that they're going to be releasing a sort of Toy Story style animation film. It's going to be coming out next year. They're aiming to do it on a significantly less budget and a significantly shorter time than you would see from a traditional kind of Hollywood animation. And it's going to be a really important moment to see what's the critical reception around this? What's the quality of this? Can they achieve that level of cost reduction? And I think actually, even if, it's not well received critically, I think, Hollywood and elsewhere are going to be looking at this and thinking, okay, so how did they do this? Where can we save money?
Yeah.
And also big tech now in the form of AI coming and looking at an entertainment in a really serious way. So what sort of role are they going to play going forward? So
feels like seminal moment coming down.
Seminal moment coming down the line, I think. Yeah.
And how about your hero of the week?
Hero of the week. So slightly left field maybe for this audience, but I'm going to talk about a video game developer called Team Cherry, who have launched a game called Silksong. And I want to talk about this because I think it's created this cultural moment actually on social, especially within the video game community. And some of the tactics they used to do that, I think, were really clever. So this is a game which has been anticipated for a long time. No one really knew when it was going to come out. That because of that, there was all this community build-up of anticipation around when this was going to happen. It was suddenly announced it was going to be released a couple of months ago or last month. Huge amount of buzz around this. Not just from those big fans of the previous title, and there was one that came before, Hollow Knight, but it really created a lot of buzz for people who didn't really know the franchise but wanted to be part of this moment. And as a result, we had this ripple effect across Twitch, across YouTube, of everyone playing this game as it came out at the same time. And one of the things I loved was I was watching a particular live streamer playing this game because I was intrigued. It's actually a really hard game, too hard for me to play. But one of the developers jumped into the chat on the Twitch live stream and was saying to the creator, I actually watched you talking about how much, you're anticipating this coming out. What do you think? And it was something that I think the video game industry does really well. They already see, I think, their audience as a community. Everyone in that chat loved that moment. The creator loved that moment because they were playing the game at the time. It's clipped up, it's then shared on social, and it creates another great piece of publicity for this company, for the game. And it's the sense that they are in touch with their community. So I would encourage people to go take a look at that. Even if you're working in the TVs, of course, you're working in the TV space, because I think there are lessons to be learned there.
Yeah, 100%. And finally, Ben, who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
Well, this is such an easy target, but I'm gonna talk about my miserable time with budget airlines over the last couple of days. It wasn't terrible. I mean, both flights were delayed, going out to IBC, the conference, and coming back. But it's for me, I've fallen the trap every time of paying for the extra services and never ever get the rewards. So, expecting to be able to put my thing in the overhead bin, having to put it about 6 rows down, paying for a fast track access at Stansted, watching everyone go past as I can't sort of scan through the machine. Yeah, one day I'll get it right, but not this time.
If they made the Eurostar vaguely affordable, it's like £300 return or something to go to Amsterdam. I mean, it just, the whole emissions stuff versus, green travel, that doesn't make sense, the UK or international travel, does it?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to consider it next time.
Yeah. Ben, thank you so much for coming on TellyCast. Fantastic
pleasure.
to speak
Thank
with
you.
you. Great new report. Great new report. Great new report. And go on to how can people access the full report then, Ben?
Sure. So if you're interested in the report, you can go on to MIDiaResearch.com, follow to the report section. You'll see it on there. Either that, or you can email me, ben@MIDiaResearch.com, and I can talk you through the process of accessing it.
All right, fantastic. Well, that's about it for this week's show. A big thanks to my guest, Ben Woods from MIDiA Research, for sharing his insights on the new Hollywood report. Don't forget you can catch up with previous episodes of TellyCast on YouTube and obviously on your audio app of choice. And while you're there, why not subscribe so you never miss another episode? I'm Justin Crosby. Thanks for listening. Stay safe.